And then what you can do with it on top of like a more traditional whiskey tasting. So we've got a couple of, let's say, semi-seasonal cocktails for you. Really, you can have them all year round, but they're two delicious things that I think suit this time of year as the weather starts to turn and gets a little bit colder. So to begin with, we're actually going to start with the first thing I like to start a tasting with, which was how do you drink whiskey? It's something that we get asked a lot as a whiskey maker, and the number one thing that I want you to take away from today is our main response to how do you drink whiskey? What's the best way to enjoy it? And the only correct answer to this is however you like to drink whiskey. There is no single one way that is like this is the correct way of drinking and enjoying single malt Scotch whiskey. If you are buying my liquid, putting it in whatever drink you want, drinking it and enjoying it, as long as all of that happens and you enjoy it, that is the correct way of drinking whiskey. So that can be drinking it straight in a lovely tasting glass. That can be in a rocks glass with some ice or a dash of water. It can also be in a pina colada or with kombucha or whatever you want. Like there is no incorrect way of drinking and enjoying whiskey as long as you're enjoying it. That being said, what I am going to cover first of all is the other side of that coin, which is why I have this lovely tasting glass in front of me, and it's how to taste and evaluate whiskey. I always think of those two different things as like two different hobbies. It's like reading books and buying books. Whilst it seems like there's lots of crossover here, they are two completely different pastimes. And drinking and enjoying whiskey can be done in any form, but it can be done by tasting and evaluating. And all that process is getting the whiskey in its purest form in a glass in front of you and trying to extract as much information as you can from your tasting experience. So what does it look like? What does it smell like? What does it taste like? What does it feel like? What's the finish like? And how do we kind of quantify and measure and write lovely tasting notes for that? So with the sample that you have in front of you, I've allocated, you've got a 100 ml sample, and we've got like a perfect split between the three things I'm going to show you today. So you have 15 ml, which is like half a shot, basically, of whiskey for you to taste and begin with. So if you want to pour about half a shot, or if you do have a measure, which would be useful for later, 15 milliliters of whiskey into a glass. And we're going to cover. Actually, we can start with glassware. So what I have here is a Nc'nean glass. And this is what I use for evaluating whiskey, for blending whiskey, because it's just what I'm used to. But really what you want is enough headroom and enough space in the glass for you to allow some aromatics to release so that you'll be able to smell them more easily, which means you'll be able to taste them more easily. And if possible, if the glass can kind of funnel in a little bit at the top, like a Nc'nean does, or like the ISO tasting glasses do, they're the ones with the stems. I don't know if I have, oh, I do have one of those. Excellent. I don't use them, so I don't. It's unusual for me to have one. I must have got this one for free from Glenn Rothers. Thanks, Glenn Rothers. This is an ISO tasting glass. So a similar sort of design where you've got enough kind of space for things to breathe, and then the glass kind of funnels in at the top. It helps concentrate aromas and flavors, basically. What you can also use, if you happen to have that at home and you don't happen to have loads of whiskey tasting glasses, a champagne flute is a really, really good nosing glass for any spirit, because again, you've got lots of space in the glass for aroma to kind of build, and champagne flutes tend to conical in a little bit at the top, so it concentrates that aroma, makes it easier for you to smell and enjoy. So that being said, on glassware, the process for tasting and evaluating single malt Scotch whiskey is all about comfort. So everything that I'm going to show you, you can take it to as much of an extreme as you want, but as soon as it becomes uncomfortable for you, stop, because you're not going to enjoy it and you're not going to be able to extract all the information that we're looking for here, especially in terms of smell, this first step. So in smelling your whiskey, you can give it a little swirl. I wouldn't try and like whip it around the glass like it's wine, because you're going to be adding too much oxygen and you're going to be releasing too many compounds. That's going to really concentrate the alcohol in your nose, and it's going to make it very hard for you to smell anything because you burn your nostrils. But a little swirl to start with, release some aromatics, and then get the glass as close to your nose as you're comfortable with. Now, I am dead inside and do this for a living, so the glass will be like about here for me, and I'll be sticking my nose all the way in and just having a good old whiff. But if you're comfortable here, if you're comfortable here, if you're comfortable here, it doesn't really matter. The whole point is trying to smell as much as you can without burning the inside of your nose. Because as soon as you get that tingling, burning sensation, just move the glass away because you're not going to be able to smell anything if you burn your nostrils. So in smelling it, all you're doing, take your big whiff, get all that information in, and you're trying to think, what does this remind me of? Taste and flavor is so connected to memory and experience. And if you're writing these tasting notes, if you've gone down like a strict WSET and wine background, they'll say like, here's the official words and language that you're allowed to use in describing flavor. But taste is subjective, flavor is subjective, and it is based on your experiences. So I might smell our whiskey and say, oh, it reminds me of lemons. You might smell this and go, oh, that's my nan's marmalade. I've never had your nan's marmalade, so I don't know if that's the case. But you've smelt it, you've made the connection, therefore it is true. Every aroma and flavor equation comes with this one element, which is you as an individual, as a person. And it's your experience that shapes what you smell and then what you perceive, and then therefore what is in your glass. Now, on the nose for us, for Nc'nean, we get a lot of our distillery profile, which is kind of fruity in two directions. There is loads of citrus here. So we say lemon posset on our website. So it's something that's very bright and fresh and like a clean citrus aroma. But we addend it with posset because there is this kind of creaminess and viscosity that we get when we get to the tasting section. And then the other thing that we have in the middle of our main tasting notes, we say stone fruit. So for me, there's loads of like peach and apricot in this, and it's unusual in terms of single malt Scotch whiskey because it's a very fresh version of those flavors. So it's very bright and light. And the last kind of official tasting that we have, we say caraway rye bread or Scandinavian rye bread because it reminds me of Norwegian rye bread that's been topped with caraway. So it's got that kind of bready, warming, homely characteristic about it. And there's this very bright, green, clean spice. It reminds me of caraway. Some people say menthol, some people say eucalyptus, but it's something that's very just fresh and vibrant and lively. So that's in nose. We can take lots of information there. And if you want, you can write tasting notes or you can just remember it and enjoy the experience. Either way. And then we're going to have a taste. So again, this is all about comfort. My suggestion, especially if this is the first high strength alcohol you've drunk today, which I hope is the case for most of you, is kind of prepare yourself a little bit. We'll do an initial taste, and you're kind of going to want to forget about that, especially if it's your first drink of the day, because you're not really going to get a lot of useful information because your mouth is just trying to get used to having 46% ethanol in it. Like it's a big jump. But so we'll get more information on our second sip. But for this first sip, what I think the best thing to do is just try and get a load of saliva in your mouth. It's not really a glamorous way of saying this, but if you can just build up a little bit of saliva, it's going to soften the whiskey as it hits your palate. It's going to reduce the ABV immediately in your palate, so it's going to release a lot of flavor, a lot of aroma, and it's just going to make things feel kind of softer and more incorporated on your first sip. So you can swallow or you can spit out as well, much like in wine. Depends on how much of this you're planning on drinking tonight. But on that first sip, it's just kind of getting your mouth acclimatized. And a good thing with Scotch whiskey to try and do is to sort of keep the liquid in your mouth for as long as you're comfortable with. The longer the liquid stays in your mouth, the more information you're going to get in terms of flavor. But like with the nose, as soon as you're getting that kind of burning sensation, if it's too hot, if it's prickly, if you're starting to get this like any kind of like numbing, spit the whiskey out or swallow it, whichever, but just get it out of your mouth because you're not going to be taking any more useful information in there. And if you keep the whiskey in there any longer, you're just going to cause some damage, short-term damage to your tongue, and you're not going to be able to taste anything for the rest of the night, or not tasting properly for the rest of the night. But the second sip is where we're going to get a lot more information because our mouth should be a bit more acclimatized to high-strength spirit now. Hold the liquid in your mouth, and I will try and get close and not make this too uncomfortable on my camera. But there's like a technique for kind of getting more oxygen into your mouth, and you're sort of chewing like a guppy is, I think, the best way of describing it. So I will show you, and hopefully there's not too much like ASMR ick from this. But you take a sip and just open your mouth. And that kind of chewing sensation does enough to draw oxygen in so you can get this kind of big burst of flavor. Don't try and breathe in too heavily because it's going to really whip up that ethanol. It's just going to start that burning sensation. But if you take a sip and just a little chew, a little something, and you'll feel all that fruit come to the fore. You get so much more liveliness, and then some of that texture should start to enhance itself as well as more of these more of these compounds fall out of solution. You get that creaminess, that oiliness, that kind of viscosity and richness. And that texture is something very, very important to Nc'nean. I've realized that I've done all of this and I've not done any of the brand chat that I'm meant to be doing. Welcome to the wonderful world of Nc'nean. Our whole point and reason for existence is to make single malt Scotch whiskey in the best possible way for the planet. So every little aspect of what we do is geared around what is the best current solution that we have for that part of the whiskey making process, and how can we implement that and showcase what's possible to the rest of the industry, and hopefully get more people, more distilleries working alongside us, with us, to make whiskey in a better way for the planet. And the first of our big sustainability credentials is the main thing that's responsible for all that texture and that body in the whiskey. And that's our organic status. So we are 100% organic. We are the only completely organic distillery in Scotland. There's a few others that do organics some of the time. We do it all of the time exclusively, and always will. As long as there is organic barley growing in Scotland, we will still be making whiskey with organic barley. And the reason we chose this initially was just for environmental reasons. It's better for biodiversity in Scottish farmland, healthier soil, cleaner water courses, a low carbon footprint in getting the barley to us because it's already in Scotland, which is surprisingly rare in the world of single malt Scotch whisky. Great environmental benefits that way. In terms of flavour, and take this with the lightest of pinches of salt, because I can't prove it. We've never run anything non-organic through our still, so I don't have empirical data side by side. But anecdotally, from tasting other distilleries where they do run organic and non-organic, and then tasting our whiskey and tasting the qualities that it has, what I think is going on here is we have a very, very high level in our spirit of compounds that are loosely called long-chain fatty acid esters, which is a bit of a mouthful, but it's oil, it's fat, it's texture, it's body, it's weight, it's viscosity. And these the compounds that are formed in fermentation. But specifically for us, because we're using organic barley, whilst organic barley's got the same level of nutrients as commercially farmed barley, it's got a much broader range of nutrients inside the barley, because rather than the same nitrates from the same fertilizer company, you've got whatever is in the land in Scotland. So there's just much more depth and complexity in the compounds available in the barley. And this is stuff that yeast eats. Yeast doesn't just eat sugar, it eats everything in the solution, and it uses that to make and create, obviously, ethanol, CO2, more yeast, and what are loosely called secondary metabolites, which are esters, aldehydes, all these like flavor compounds. And we have a really, really high level of these longer, more complex esters, which is all that texture, because our yeast has this really interesting stuff to eat during fermentation. And then by running very, very long fermentation times, we do up to 5 days, which is very unusual in Scotland. It's not, the average is normally 2. You're allowing more time for these compounds to form, and it builds more weight, viscosity, creaminess, and decadence in the whiskey. There are other big sustainability credentials that we have as well. So obviously we're 100% organic. We're also 100% renewable energy powered for distillation operations. So we have an on-site biomass boiler rather than using fossil fuels to distill with, which is the industry standard. That's a 90% reduction in carbon emissions on site for us by switching that fuel source. And more importantly, I think in terms of carbon, it's got a very short carbon cycle. So the carbon cycle for a fossil fuel distillery is 1 million years, 2 million years, until that carbon's back in the ground in the form that it came out. For us, it's 60 years because it's trees, and they are our trees. They grow at the back of the distillery. We harvest them. We replant everything that we harvest. So it's a lower carbon fuel source, and it's a much, much shorter carbon cycle, which is very, very important from a real sustainability point of view. And then the last of my big 100% is our bottle. So this is our lovely, beautiful bottle, and it is made from 100% recycled, clear, post-consumer waste glass. So it's completely recycled glass. We're the first whiskey in the world to do that, which is surprisingly. We only launched 5 years ago. We'd have thought somebody else would be in completely recycled glass. Turns out no. That's got a 40% lower carbon footprint during manufacture compared to flint glass bottles, which is the industry standard, because you are melting glass back into glass, and it takes a lot less energy than vitrifying sand. So there's an enormous carbon saving during manufacture, and it's also 100% waste material rather than the 80 to 90% new material going in to make a flint glass bottle, which again, as I said, is the industry standard. Another big Three 100%, and that's the big kind of driving message of Nc'nean is sustainability. That is very much the tip of a very large iceberg. Every little detail of everything we do at the distillery goes through a lens of, can we do this in a better way for the planet? And if we can, then we do. So that's why we're a low water usage distillery, a low chemical usage distillery, we're a zero waste distillery, and I could go on and on and on. I'll be here for a very long time exposing all of our sustainability credentials. You can go onto the website. You can see we release an annual sustainability report, which includes a full carbon footprinting exercise. We're, again, the only distillery in Scotland doing that, which is very, very frustrating. But it's a coupling of, yes, we're doing this really cool stuff, but also openness, honesty, transparency, and making sure that we can be held accountable for everything that we are doing and how it can improve moving forward. And that loosely is Nc'nean. And as we've already tasted, it's pretty good. It's pretty yummy, because it would be pointless going to all of that effort if we made rubbish whiskey.
Matt, can I just jump in? Thank you so much.
Yes,
That's been really insightful. I mean, if anybody has any questions, we'll obviously have a Q&A towards the end, but if you'd like to jump in and ask any questions on what Matt's covered so far. But I was going to point out, if you go into the Nc'nean side, the bottles are so beautiful that there's inspiration to reuse your bottles as on your dinner table with some candles on it. And I must say, it looks absolutely beautiful. What is the inspiration behind the design? Because the bottle is stunning.
Oh, thank you. So we worked with a wonderful company called Fresh Britain, who helped us with everything, with the name and the brand identity and how we communicate, and also obviously in how we look. It's all geared. The name is geared around Nc'nean, which is a unpronounceable, unspellable Gaelic word. She is the queen of the forest and protector of nature in Gaelic mythology. So the idea of sort of walking your own path in harmony with nature was very core to what we wanted to do with the distillery. So that's reflected in the name. There's also the Nook element. So NC apostrophe is the female equivalent of Mac. So Mac Donald, son of Donald. Nook is daughter of, and we're female founded, predominantly female run. I'm the exception, very clearly, to people that work for the distillery. We wanted to bring that back into Scottish lexicon. The actual visuals of the bottle, it's everything that grows around the distillery. So we've got ling, we've got bog myrtle, we've got ferns. There's one sneaky addition of things that don't grow around the distillery, but it is obviously very important to whiskey making. There's a little bit of barley on the back there. There is no barley on the Morven Peninsula, on the wild and beautiful west coast of Scotland, because it is utterly miserable, and there is no way that any decent barley could grow there. It's far too wet. So where we are, Morven, it's the peninsula just south of Ardnamurchan. So we're just on the left of Fort William, about halfway up Scotland, if you know where that is. The peninsula itself is like the size of Birmingham, and only 374 people live there as of the last census. So it's just incredibly wild and beautiful. We still have temperate rainforest. We have every cute animal that's ever lived in Scotland up there. So we've got pine martens and wildcats, and in the Sound we have dolphins and seals and orcas every now and again, and in the air all the eagles and things. It's a very magical place.
Sounds very magical indeed.
Yeah. It's
it's
Annabelle's family farm, so that's why we're there.
Lovely. Brilliant. I was just going to say that we are going to circulate a little offer that Nc'nean has kindly shared with us. So if anybody's interested in actually trying a full bottle, which I really hope you enjoy, the little samples that have been sent to you, then we'll send you a little special code. And also just planting some ideas. I think Cookaway and Nc'nean could make a really great Christmas gift. So do think about it. We'll send you a little something to try a bottle or send somebody a little gift. And don't forget, we have Scottish menus as well. So you could probably get a Scottish menu and a Nc'nean, which could make a great combination. Perfect. I'll let you crack on, Matt. Any questions? Otherwise, we will. I'm guessing you want to jump into making cocktails now, or is there anything else you wanted to cover?
Yeah, I think we can go straight to cocktails. If you have any questions at any point.
Jump in with one. Sorry. I was having a quick sneaky browse while you were talking. Yep. There's the organic single malt, which we've got a sample of, but you've also got a 4-year-old 2020. I don't know if you could give a bit of a sense of the differences between them, and I don't know, what if I was in a different mood, which would I go for, the organic single malt or the 4-year-old?
Is the 4-year-old a single cask or?
It's the heart cut, I think it says.
Oh, the heart cut. Oh, that's not us. Yeah, well, that is us, but it's also not us.
Oh, okay.
So, in terms of Scotch whiskey, there's a wonderful phenomena, actually with global whiskey now, and that's notably what the heart cut's about. But the companies are called independent bottlers, and they purchase casks or parcels of whiskey from brokers and from distilleries, and then they sell them under their own name, but with the naming rights. And it's more about kind of getting that bottler's choice and impression of that distillery and how they showcase it, and them only kind of selecting things that they like, and you're kind of you buy into the concept of that bottler. And if you are going to choose an independent bottler, the Heartcut is a utterly phenomenal place to start. It's run by Georgie and Fab. Georgie's ex-Bacardi, Fab is her husband, and Georgie's look after the malts program for Bacardi. So all their single malts like Craigellachie and Altmore and all that jazz. She very boldly, 2 years ago now, they're just 2 and a bit years old, whilst pregnant with twins, decided to quit her job and launch her own independent bottling company called the Heartcut. And she focuses on world whiskey, but just like finding phenomenal distilleries, working directly with them, so never working with brokers, and releasing single casks or small kind of parcel bottlings of unique and interesting whiskey that suits her taste, suits her expression. And I spent about a year working with Georgie on the Heartcut release, because it was meant to be a very quick job, but we'd worked together. We'd found a cask that we loved. It had been ordered and sort of it was ready to be kind of weighed and moved on. And during that process, Georgie had popped into Timber Yard, which is the Michelin star restaurant in Edinburgh. And we had recently done a collaborative release with Timber Yard, which is a Madeira cask. Mm-hmm. So the cask had previously held Madeira wine, and then we'd used it to finish the whiskey for about 6 or 7 months. And she tasted that in Timber Yard, having ordered a bourbon cask from me, and immediately went, "Oh no, I want this one instead." So cancelled her order. Asked if I could have if she could have a Madeira cask Nc'nean. I said no, because we don't have any more. But then working together made more. And there's always this kind of mystery when you're finishing casks as to how long it's going to take. It could take 3 months, it could take 6 months, it could take 5 years, it could take 7 years. So we can start this process, but then it's a case of just when will this come to life? And about 6 months after we'd had this initial kind of tasting, I was in the warehouse tasting some other stuff, and I kind of spied this cask out of the corner of my eye. So I wandered over and popped it open, had a quick taste, and was like, "Oh wow, I was very impressed at that stage." But it comes with this kind of caveat of drinking this in the warehouse up on the beautiful Morven Peninsula. Like, this is a magical place that immediately improves the taste like 20%. So whilst I'm enjoying this now, let's take a sample away. Let's try it in a more neutral environment and see how we feel about it. And tasted it the next day in a blanker room, and it was amazing. I really loved it. So I phoned Georgie up and sent her a sample, and that was the one that was selected. So yeah, the Heartcut 4-year-old Nc'nean. It was from a single cask of Nc'nean that's been finished for, I believe, about 7 months in this Madeira cask in total. Okay. And it's a very good expression of Nc'nean in that it's still got all those juicy fruits and that freshness that you've tasted in the flagship expression, but there is more there's a bit more depth of sweetness, because there's more of that kind of, I think Georgie describes it as rum and raisin, where there is just a little bit more kind of molasses chewiness about it. So it's just a little bit fuller, a little bit nuttier, a little bit thicker.
Okay.
Yeah. And
so the answer is try both.
Yes, try both. I mean, in fact, buy 2 bottles because it might run out.
Fair enough. Sorry to derail that.
No, not at all. And if you pop directly onto our website, which is where the discount code will be for, so Nc'nean.com, and then you can go to the shop in UK. We've got a number of different expressions available at the moment, including a very quirky single cask that's been finished in a white Bordeaux cask, which tastes like a ready-made. I don't know if you've ever had a pickleback, like a shot of whiskey and a shot of pickle juice. It tastes like a ready-made version of that. It's got this like acetic twang about it that it's very like Marmite as a flavor, but delicious. I really enjoyed it. Anyway, sidetracked. Let's make some cocktails. So I'm gonna move my camera down and this poor abused mouse mat is going to take up the brunt of my spills for the next 20 minutes. The two drinks that we're going to make. So we're going to make a, he says, well, we're going to make an espresso martini second. But firstly, we're going to make a Bobby Burns. So a Bobby Burns is a very simple drink. It's just like a Manhattan Rob Roy twist, and it's only the lightest and minorest of twists. And I've made this version in a kind of a home bartending friendly way. So no extra equipment required other than a spoon. Having said that, I should probably find where my spoon is. Oh, up here. I do have a spoon. That's good. That's handy. So to make this, what I would suggest, grab just a good sized rocks glass and get some ice in there. As is the case with all cocktails, ice is your friend, and you can never have enough of it. The more ice you can get in your glass, the better. Ice keeps ice cold, so your drink will last longer. It will taste better if you put more ice in the glass. I'm going to put some in now. We're going to make the drink, and then I'll probably top it up with even more ice at the end, because it's just the best way of keeping drinks in their freshest, most drinkable condition. Now, this recipe is just 3 ingredients. We're going to do 40 ml of the Nc'nean organic single malt Scotch whiskey. We're going to do 40 ml of sweet vermouth. Here I've got the Cookaway Masterclass, which is just my favorite vermouth. It is phenomenal. You can buy it in Waitrose, and it is, I can't speak highly enough of it. It's so delicious, and it makes incredible Negronis and Manhattans and everything else that you use sweet vermouth for. And then the last ingredient, the thing that twists this away from a Rob Roy kind of build, is we're adding 10 ml of Benedictine. So just that sweet herbaceous liqueur that gives it just a little bit of extra sweetness and a little bit of extra depth, really in kind of like that top note herbaceous element. So very simple. It's just 40 ml of the Nc'nean, or if we don't have exact measures, it's kind of just over 1.5 normal shots. Or if you've got like a small kind of measure egg cup kind of thing, if you do 2 of those, and then equal parts, so it's 40 ml or 2 little egg cup shots of your sweet vermouth. Easy peasy. And then the last bit is 10 ml, so 1/4 of whatever you've already poured for the first 2 measures of the Benedictine. And that's all the liquid ingredients. And obviously this is a very kind of boozy, rich version of any kind of cocktail. So what we need to do is stir it down. The stirring down incorporates all the elements, so they're nice and well mixed, which is obviously really good. The main thing it's doing here is chilling and getting things as cold as possible. You can keep stirring for a very long time, but what the process is that as the drink dilutes, and it's the actual act of dilution that's chilling here, which is why we use ice and why we don't just use like ice packs or things, because they don't do an effective job of chilling quite like dilution does. You want to find the sweet spot of, have we added enough water so that it's diluted enough and drinkable, and then have we added the right amount of water so that it is as cold as possible. And realistically, if you're stirring these at home, if you've just got the ice fresh out of the freezer, you need to stir for about 45 seconds, maybe a minute. If you've, like me, had the ice kind of sat on the side and it's tempered, so it's gone all kind of glassy and it's a little bit wet on the surface, about a 30-second stir will be perfect. And then, oh yes, a little bit of extra ice to stop it up. You don't want floaty ice. You want the ice going all the way to the bottom so you can't push it down anymore. That's gold standard. That's the best. Then the most simple and beautiful of garnishes and the most delicious of garnishes, just a little bit of shortbread. And that is a Bobby Burns. Super simple and very easy to make kind of en masse at home, because you can just line all your glasses up, you can pour all the liquid in so that it's set and ready to go, and that'll quite happily sit there for an hour uncovered and you'll be fine. And then as soon as you're ready to go and you've got to make drinks for 25 people, you can just throw all the ice in, give them a quick stir, pop your shortbread on, and you're done. Nice and simple. And yeah, if you have those ingredients and you want to make that, have a taste.
I can't tell who all are making. I think some Ronnie
I can see a couple of people making them, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so delicious. I've not had a Bobby Vance in a really long time. That's so yummy. And there's just like the Benedictine, whilst it is like a very rich and heavy sweet liqueur, it adds this kind of brightness and levity to the drink, which is like, it's counterintuitive because you wouldn't expect the big boozy sweet thing to give something more kind of bright vitality, but there's something in its kind of herbal characteristics that's so refreshing and clean. So yeah, even though we have this very kind of boozy rich thing, it's very fresh, it's very bright. And it works really, really well with the shortbread because you've kind of got a bit of the acidity in the vermouth, you've got that levity in the Benedictine, and then obviously the shortbread, it's buttery, it's fatty, it's slightly savory, a little bit salty. Like, it's a great combination. Should not take a bite of shortbread if I'm meant to be talking to people. It's delicious.
You can have a little break.
Oh.
I think we've certainly got some people giving it a go, or maybe some weekend inspiration for the others.
Indeed. So,
is it something that you've made as a drink? Is this something that is very traditional, or is this something that you have invented and pioneered?
Oh gosh, I've definitely not invented this. No, it's a very well established drink. It might even be in the Savoy cocktail book. I will check because that's the easiest one to search because it's alphabetical. But if it's in here, then it would be easy to search if I wasn't dyslexic and knew which order the letters go in. Bobby Burns. So the Savoy cocktail book was originally published in the 1930s. So it's nearly 100 years old at the very least. So I think we're pretty well settled.
Amazing.
But our next drink is decidedly more modern. I once again did not have a hand in creating this, but a couple of friends of mine have shown me great ways of making this very accessible to a home bartender. So the second drink that we're going to cover is a whiskey version of an espresso martini. Now, I love an espresso martini. I think it's a phenomenal drink. It is obviously a very modern drink. It was invented in the 1980s in London by Dick Bradsell. And being a sort of late 80s cocktail from London, it's a vodka drink. Like that's how it was made because that was the popular spirit at the time, and that's what the first bottle that Dick grabbed hold of. But vodka is just kind of seasoning in this case. It doesn't even really add any extra elements to the drink. It's there just to make it boozy and to make the coffee kind of pop. But any alcohol can make the coffee pop, and you can pick flavors that really complement the coffee and that you've chosen and your liqueurs. Using whiskey, I think, is just a natural bedfellow for an espresso martini. I've seen rum ones, I've seen tequila ones, and they are good, they are interesting, but given the other classics that we know, like the Irish coffee and like the Revolver, we know that whiskey and coffee just work so well together. They are so delicious. So I'm going to show you how you can make espresso martinis at home, hopefully in the simplest way possible. And I've got a couple of little tricks, let's say, for making sure that you can make this without what you would normally expect to be your equipment. You'd expect to have espresso, for example. You'd expect to have an espresso machine. So if you don't have a full espresso rig at home, you can definitely use Nespresso pods and just do like the little short shot. That also works perfectly well. But if you don't have any kind of coffee machinery at home, I have two ways of adding your coffee to this drink. And the first is just to get a espresso concentrate. So you can buy this in most supermarkets now from Grind, who are a lovely company, and it's kind of espresso strength coffee. It's because it's been cold brew. It's kind of less bitter, less aggressive, so you can get away with using a little bit less sugar as well. And it's just sits in your fridge. I mean, I constantly have this sat in my fridge because even though I'm a a coffee nerd and I love using my AeroPress, I am also lazy and want really good coffee immediately without having to go through that rigmarole. So this is just a great thing to have in the fridge, and you can just pour a little bit out. But let's say you don't have this in your fridge because you're not as much of a caffeine addict as I am. But I imagine most people, even if they're not a daily coffee drinker, do have instant coffee in their cupboard. And there is a version of this drink that you can make with instant coffee, and it is just as delicious. In fact, insider knowledge, we take a stand every year now at the London Coffee Festival, which is one of the biggest coffee festivals on the planet, really. And we have a whole stand there dedicated to serving Nc'nean espresso martinis, because we're turning up there as a whiskey brand. We're obviously not normally meant to be at a coffee festival, but we say, like, we're coming in, we're going to showcase our whiskey, but we're here to make whiskey espresso martinis. We make our espresso martinis on that stand using instant coffee, and we have the best coffee people in the world come up to us and saying, "This is phenomenal, can we have the recipe?" And we have to smile greedily on the inside that they have to go away and make some instant coffee espresso martinis, having spent the entire show fawning over La Marzocco and Slayer machines and all this expensive gear. So in order to make you're basically making like an instant coffee version of espresso, and you just do it by weight. So if you have a little set of scales, if you do 1 part by weight of instant coffee and then 9 parts by weight water, so it adds up to 10 in total, 1 part to 9, and it just cold water from a tap, doesn't have to be hot. Give it a mix together until it's all incorporated, and you will have created instant espresso. It's not got all of the characteristics of espresso, and I wouldn't sit there and drink it like an espresso, but for use in an espresso martini, it's absolutely perfect. So I mean, the amount that we use in the drink, it's just 20 ml of espresso. You can quite literally get away with putting 2 grams of coffee and 18 ml of water into your jigger. Give it a mix before you start, and then you're good to go. And then the other little ingredient that we have here that requires maybe a little bit of preparation, I made this 30 seconds ago before we started, is sugar syrup. So you can buy sugar syrup off the shelf, Nc'nean being sort of the main brand available in the UK, and you can have all the different flavor varieties and experiment with those and work them in, that's fine. But if you just need to make sugar syrup at home, again, if you already have your scales out, it's equal parts. 1 part sugar, 1 part water. If you use warmer water or you put it on the stove and stir it, it'll dissolve a little bit faster. But equally, you can just use caster sugar and cold water from the tap and just shake it until it's all incorporated. And as long as it's gone all clear like that, everything is in there and you've made sugar syrup, and that will keep in your fridge quite happily for a couple of weeks. And you can use that to make old fashions or drizzle it into cakes or whatever you like. So, preamble out of the way, let's make an espresso martini. So we'll start with the whiskey, and if I have planned things correctly from your 100 ml sample, you should have exactly 35 milliliters left after the 50 that you used for the roll. Oh, no, you should have 45 ml left because it used to be 50. Oh, great. We're fine. You've got loads left. You'll have 10 ml spare. Right. 35 ml. So a shot and a half of whiskey going into your shaker. Here's another sort of tip as well. Obviously, not everyone happens to have cocktail shakers at home. Oh, I realised I'm up here, right down here. So, yes, I've got lovely fancy cocktail shakers. You absolutely do not need fancy cocktail shakers. You can use Tupperware. You can use your blender. You can use anything that you can seal together, as long as there is space inside for liquid and ice and it seals and it's not going to leak. That is a cocktail shaker. So, like, Tupperware is my go-to. If you can't find your equipment, you can just raid the cupboard and use that, and it'll make a perfectly serviceable cocktail shaker. And then in terms of straining, I know a lot of people don't have the small fine strainers like we have for making cocktails, but you can have a massive sieve that you use for pasta. That will work just as well. Basically anything, all you're trying to do is remove the ice, and there's nothing extra fancy that's needed for that. So we've got 35 ml of whiskey into our shaker. We are then going to add 20 ml of a coffee liqueur. So I'm going to use Conker, who we've worked with before at the distillery, so another B Corp spirits producer, which we like. But 20 ml, just a short shot of coffee liqueur. And then the same amount of your coffee. So that can either be freshly brewed espresso. You can even pop to the shops and buy some espresso and bring it back if the cafes are still open when you're hankering for an espresso martini. Or you can use my instant espresso cheat, or you can use the little cold brew concentrate, whatever. It just needs to be strong coffee. And then it's sort of sugar to taste. So
Can you just go back one? Sorry, can you just go back one? How much was the coffee liqueur?
How much? Same as the espresso, so 20 ml. So okay. 35 ml of the single malt, 20 ml of the coffee liqueur, 20 ml of the espresso, and then your sugar syrup somewhere between 10 and 20 ml. I think I'm going to err on the side of about 15 because the Conca's quite dry as a coffee liqueur. If you were using something like Kahlua or Tia Maria, you can dial the sugar back. To sort of have a taste and see how you feel. And also what you can do is obviously you can shake this drink up and then have a little taste whilst it's in the shaker. And if it's not sweet enough, you can add a little bit more sugar. Cool. So those 4 ingredients go in, and then we add our ice. And again, ice is your friend. More ice makes better drinks. And just before I shake this, a last great step, which I should have told you about right at the beginning. But if you're going to put something into a cocktail glass, it's a really good idea to get the cocktail glass as cold as possible first. So I've had mine in the freezer for the last half an hour. But even if you've decided this second you're going to make one of these espresso martinis, if you grab your glass and put it in the freezer now, the 2 minutes it takes you to make those drinks, even that 2 minutes in the freezer is going to be really, really beneficial because it's going to get that glass colder. The colder the glass, the longer the drink's going to last in that glass. Right, I'm going to shake now, and I'm going to definitely put this on mute because you don't need to hear that. But you're going to shake for about 12 seconds.
Okay, we're on a little shake pause. Oh, this is good fun.
Welcome back. So yeah, shake hard, shake long, and then you'll get more texture into the drink. The shaking obviously is part of the dilution, it's a part of the chilling, but the more aggressive and heavy your movements, the longer your movements, the more air you whip into the drink, and that makes the texture of the final cocktail fluffier and richer and creamier and more delicious. So strain it out with, again, whatever strainers you have. I have definitely strained cocktails in hotel rooms with forks from 2 ill-fitting plastic cups before. There is no need for fancy equipment. Just grab whatever you have. And again, traditionally, this drink was garnished with 3 coffee beans on top. I don't do that. 1, I think it's a waste of perfectly good coffee that you could be drinking. But 2, obviously, a lot of this recipe doesn't require the use of fresh coffee, so you probably don't have coffee beans immediately to hand. So I personally like this drink just ungarnished. I think it's a beautiful cocktail as it is. I don't think it needs any extra little fluff over the top. And yeah, that's how you make a little espresso martini.
Looks amazing. I don't drink, by the way, but it's been absolutely fascinating watching you talk about whiskey all evening. My dad used to drink whiskey. He was in the Indian Army, so I've grown
requirements.
Yes,
in the Indian
Army. But that looks incredible. Amazing. Thanks so much, Matt. I think we can we open the floor for Q&A?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just conscious
I'd love to hear what everyone thinks of the drinks they've made.
Yeah, amazing. Please feel free to come off mute. Any questions, any feedback for those of you who've made?
So quick one, reference to the age of your whiskey. So presumably as you've been going 5 years, your oldest whiskey is 5 years.
No, so the distillery's been going for 8 years. We've had whiskey released and in bottles for 5 years. There will never, well, I say there'll never be. We don't put age statements on the bottles. I don't like age statements on bottles. I don't think they are helpful. because they don't. I think my argument has always been the day that someone can tell me what 10-year-old whiskey tastes like is the day we'll put an age statement on the bottle. 10-year-old Lefroy tastes nothing like 10-year-old Macallan, tastes nothing like 10-year-old Glenfarclas or whatever. Like I don't think the 10 really helps, and I'd rather use that space, especially on like our bottles when we look at our special releases. I'd rather use that space to communicate flavor or experience or story, so that there's more for customers to kind of get their teeth into while they're enjoying the dram, rather than just how old is it. That being said, I do think there should be transparency in everything that we do in Scotch whisky. So if you go onto our website and you look at on the drop down menu, just go onto like batches or batch codes or cask information, we tell you everything the Scotch Whisky Association will let us tell you in regards to every whiskey we've ever released on there, which includes the age of the youngest whiskey in the blend, like we're allowed to tell you, and information saying that there is other whiskey in here, because there will be. So there'll be older whiskey in there, so we're just not allowed to talk about it. So you'll be able to know exactly when things were distilled, and in some cases exactly what cask it came from. And I think that answers what your question was. Sorry, I went off on my rant.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. Yeah. So I think basically what I was trying to sort of get to was, trying to find out how old your oldest whiskey is in some respects. But as you say, I think from your narrative earlier, it doesn't really matter to a certain extent. Obviously, there's a point where it becomes whiskey because it's in a barrel for a certain period of time. Yeah. But it's the fact, it's the experimental aspect of putting it into a cask of a port or a Madeira or whatever that might make it different, and so therefore that's what you're looking for.
Yes, certainly. And there's a big difference between what we're doing in Nc'nean versus what the rest of the industry is doing, because I've always kind of separated Scotch whisky into two categories. There's a very small number of producers like us that are doing it in our way, which is geared around making the best possible spirit first and foremost, and then going through the whiskey making process afterwards, versus the industry standard, which is make as much alcohol as you possibly can, put that in wood, and then let wood do a lot of the hard work. So it's more a case of like, where do you want to invest your time and your money? Do you want to invest it in maturation and the cask side and just making lots and lots and lots and hoping you can pick out the best from that? Or do you make the very best to begin with, which is what I believe we do. It's why we go to great lengths to source our organic barley. It's why we have the complex long fermentation times. There's other details, like we run a tight high cut in the still, which means that we take for a much smaller heart cut compared to everybody else, and we start collecting it way before anyone else would. And that's about getting this very vibrant, bright, clean tasting spirit. If you know about like the angel share and the amount of spirit that's lost per year during maturation as things evaporate away, I've always thought of what we do as just moving the angel share early. Like all of the decisions that we make to make this great spirit, we make less. We don't make as much spirit as somebody else, to the tune of somewhere between 10 and 20% for every ton of barley that comes in. But we're still maximizing it because we recycle all the misuse elements. That aside, it means that the spirit that we create is phenomenal. We're incredibly proud of our new make. It's why we have the botanical spirit, which is the other product that we sell. That is our new make that's just been redistilled with 10 botanicals, and it really showcases kind of the quality of our distillery. And then the botanical element obviously puts it more in line with something like gin, and it gives you this kind of almost like a sense of terroir, because the main botanicals that we use, it's the things that grow around the distillery. It's bog myrtle, it's heather, sorrel, thyme. So yeah, our approach to whiskey making is making phenomenal spirit and then going through the maturation period for 3, 4, 5, 6 years to make great whiskey. It sounds very gobby now, being a young distillery, but our intent is to make young whiskey forever. Like if we're having this conversation in 50 years time, with any luck, I'm still saying, yeah, we make 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old whiskey, because that's what we're designed from the ground up to do.
Amazing.
Cool.
Thumbs up. Thumbs up. Any more questions? Otherwise, we would like to say a huge thank you, I think, to everyone who joined in. And it's been, a lot of fun, very fascinating, very knowledgeable, and I'm sure everybody feels the same. I'm going to try and save this recording.